Chris, thanks for joining us today. Really excited to dive into this topic, man. This is such unknown for so many high school athletes, just navigating the recruiting process. So I'm excited to dive into this today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, Sam.
Absolutely.
It's exciting to work with somebody who I got to work with. So,
absolutely, man. So for people who don't know you, what's the 60-second story about how you got to where you're at right now?
Grew up in Philadelphia, played soccer, always had a passion for soccer. Knew I wanted to play college in soccer, wasn't recruited, ended up at Mount St. Mary's here in Maryland. Walked on to the team in the spring of my freshman year. Played 3 years, got into coaching, loved coaching. Coached at the collegiate level, both at the Mount and McDaniel. And while I was at the Mount, I became the director of student athlete academic support, where I met you, and where I was working closely with all of the student athletes on their academic success. And 3-4 years into the job, I just realized high school kids needed to be better educated and better prepared for playing college sports. And that's how Guiding Future Stars was created.
And you said something interesting backstage just a couple of minutes ago. You said you're not a traditional recruiting company, right? So many athletes and parents can see of tons of recruiting companies out there. You explicitly called yourself a education company.
Yes.
Explain your differentiator a little bit.
I mean, a scouting and recruiting service is going to say that, you call us, we're going to get you recruited. We're going to call on college coaches. We're going to find a place for you to play. Whereas GFS, we're an education company. We want to educate you so you know how to navigate through the process on your own. There's a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, a lot of things that are true, things that are false. And we think it's important you understand all those things early on in the process. I mean, the recruiting process has changed drastically in the last decade. It has increased immensely when kids are starting the process. But really, it doesn't really start until you can communicate with college coaches. There's so much to do leading up to that point. So right now, like the big day is for most sports, it's June 15th. Prior to your junior year, you shouldn't just start on that day. There's things you should be doing leading up to June 15th. And so that's kind of the philosophy when we talk to kids. We're like, we're going to get you ready for June 15th of that day. So.
Now, obviously, you're an expert in this whole process that high school athletes need to navigate through. But the saying goes that we're drowning in data, but we're starving for wisdom. So, what are some of the biggest? We'll start with the obstacles or the pitfalls that people might fall into with all of this data, as part of the recruiting process is concerned.
Absolutely, and that's in the book is one of the chapters is pitfalls to avoid while navigating through the process. The biggest one is not being open-minded. So a lot of kids have a closed mind when going into the process, thinking, I need to go to a Division I school. There's 1,200 schools, colleges, universities that offer athletic teams.
Right.
So the kids need to understand that D1 is not the end-all, be-all of college sports. There's a lot of opportunities out there. They just have to do their research, find the information that works for them, find the fit that works for them academically, athletically, personally, socially, all those things wrapped up into the college experience. So that is really my biggest takeaway. I've worked with kids who, when we start out working together, is D1, 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 D1.
Right.
And 6 months down the road, they have not getting any love from D1 coaches. They're like, well, now what do I do? And my question was, well, I told you early, keep an open mind, look at all schools, D1, D2, D3, big, small, city, rural, figure out what you don't like, and ultimately you'll figure out what's going to work for you.
Yeah, and in the long run, that's going to be more important for your college career, figuring out exactly what you want. But why, just real quick, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. Why do you think players get caught up in this status symbol of Division I?
Well, it's because what we see on TV. I mean, and that is basketball and football. It's not that you
Big
play
time.
D1 baseball. It wasn't that way for us at
Yeah.
the Mount. There's big schools, small schools. The D1 experience at a Big Ten school compared to a D1 experience at a Northeast Conference school is quite drastically different.
Of course.
But they just think that's where the best players play, and that's where I want to play, and that's where I want to be. And we know that there's some, especially I know at baseball, there's quality D2 and D3 players that are being drafted over some D1 players. So it's getting them to understand it's all about the experience. When I look back at my college experience, yes, soccer was a big part of it. It wasn't the only part. I love the Mount and everything the Mount stood for. And soccer was just a part of that experience.
No, I agree. It's 100% based on the experience. Because when you look back, 4 years, 5 years, however long you're in college, man, you're not going to say, "Oh man, I'm glad I stuck to my guns from high school and said I needed to go Division I," if you didn't have the experience.
Yeah.
So what are the questions that athletes should be asking themselves then? As before June 15th or junior year.
Yeah.
Or freshman or sophomore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you touched on it a little bit about, area, location, what you want. What are some of the questions just for the people watching, just to get their gears turning in their head that they should be asking themselves?
Yeah, I mean, those are the early questions. So again, we take a look at the process or the college search kind of process from three perspectives. We look at it as a student. So from an academic perspective, we look at it as a teenager, and then we look at it as from an athlete. When you're starting out, I think you just look at it from a student, so your academics, and as a teenager, and that's a good starting point to figure out, okay, how far away do I want to go from home?
Big fact.
Location, big school, little school, where am I going to feel comfortable with? We talk about academic environment. Could you see yourself going to a big school where you're sitting in a lecture hall with 300 students, or do you want to be in a classroom with 20 other students and your professor's name, and when you walk by him on campus, you can say hi to him? And there's no right or wrong reason or answer for that. That's what you feel comfortable with and what works for you. I know personally that a big school was never going to work for me. I always needed that small, intimate environment where I could get to know my professor, if I need help or anything like that.
Absolutely, man. So obviously you help navigate that recruiting process, or that education process, really. But if obviously I'm gonna put it in here, go check out Chris's book if you're starting that process, right? But in relation to not only the book and starting the process, what do you think that is the biggest misinformation out there?
I think scholarships is a big one. I'm probably one of the biggest. So just in terms of numbers, so in terms of all sports, there's 8 million high school student athletes that play high school sports.
Okay.
About 7% go on to play in college.
Wow.
About 2% play at Division I level, and less than 1% are getting a full athletic scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's the misnomer about scholarships and who gets them and how much they get. Again, for a small school where we went to, we were getting a lot more academic money than we were athletic scholarship money.
Yeah.
There's a lot of schools similar to the Mount that offer more academic money than they do athletic money. So academics are important, and hopefully the kids understand that as they enter high school, because once you start freshman year, those grades count.
So that's a huge lesson then for parents too, right?
Absolutely.
That are chasing that scholarship, right? All that scholarship money for their son from the time they're 7 years old.
Absolutely. I mean, again, parents want the best for their kids. We talk about parents wanting their kids to be happy, healthy, safe, successful, and I think that's important for parents to understand. But it's not all about the money, and the scholarship money is not out there what they might think.
Yeah, that's just going off the numbers, man. The numbers don't lie, right?
The numbers don't lie.
Less than 1% of that 8 million get a full academic scholarship.
Athletic scholarship, yep.
That is unbelievable. So for you parents listening, just keep that in mind, that keep pushing your kids towards the academic side, especially for scholarships, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, most schools will offer a combination of academic and athletic. So if you get a good academic package and you are talented enough to receive an athletic scholarship and sign your NLI, that can be a pretty good financial package. I don't think parents care too much where the money's coming from, whether it's, if it's $30,000 and 20 is coming from academics and 10 is from athletic, $30,000 is $30,000.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's going to impact the rest of your life then after you graduate, and if you have student loans, and it's a whole process. It's a whole timeline to think about, really.
It really is. But
let's talk about the book. So
okay.
I love the title, man, Designing Your Pathway to College Sports. It's unique in a sense that you're allowing, and obviously you elaborate on this because this is your work, this is your art. You're allowing them to specifically design the path that they want. It's not what you need to do or do this in order to be recruited. I love the concept of designing their own pathway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what it was all about. We talked about kind of the philosophy of GFS was educate, empower, engage, and inspire. And I think this book allows them to do that. We want them to take ownership of the recruiting process early on. I think before, like I said, the recruiting process has drastically changed over the last decade, even more. A lot of the times before, it was parents doing the process for their kids.
Right.
And I just don't think that's the way to do it, because the kid's the one spending the time on campus. They're going to be the one spending 4 years. So they've got to find the school that's going to be the fit for them. And the only way to do that is to be engaged in the process and figure out what you want out of your college experience.
So is that a piece of advice for parents to kind of back off, or more of a piece of advice for athletes you guys need to engage more?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. It really, so we talk about building your recruiting team, and I kind of related to a kind of a basketball starting five.
Yeah.
Where the student is the point guard. They should be running everything. Parents need to be there kind of as a two guard, kind of helping them, assisting them navigate through the process, help with planning, campus visits, provide wisdom when necessary. But you don't want to force your kid into a situation or a place or a college where the kid doesn't really fit or is not really interested in.
Right. Absolutely. I love that analogy, man. You got your starting five. Who's the center?
Coaches, the high school coaches, club coaches. Then you have your guidance counselor, and then we also have your performance coaches, and they're not directly related to the recruiting aspect of it.
Yeah.
But the physical development, the transition athletically from high school to college is a big jump. So having somebody, an expert who has that knowledge is helpful.
Absolutely. So you're identifying all of these resources that student athletes have around them that they might not even realize. Instead of just relying on mom and dad to, get this whole ball rolling, you actually say, okay, here's what you have. Here's your starting five.
Yeah.
Now let's go play the game.
Yeah. And the coaches play an important role, but it is not their job to get you recruited. And I think that's a big myth sometimes is travel coach, high school coaches, they're going to step up, and some coaches might, and just start calling coaches on your behalf. That's not their job. If they're doing that kind of out of the graciousness of their own heart. And they want you to succeed and they want you to do well. But that's not their job. Their job is to assist you in the process, maybe provide you some kind of evaluation to let you know, this is where I think you might be able to play and succeed. But it's not their job to get you recruited. It's yours.
So when should a student athlete start this whole process?
I recommend freshman year, usually second semester freshman year. So you get through your first semester of high school and figure out, everything that goes along with that transition from 8th grade to high school. Right. But then once you get into spring of freshman year, now we're starting the process where we're educating ourselves about, we talk about the myths, the pitfalls to avoid, the different opportunities that exist out there.
Yeah.
And it kind of starts from there, and then you just kind of move through. So, in the book, there's an actual roadmap. And so we kind of just start through the roadmap, and kind of just gradually take you through to where you need to go.
And I love the roadmap concept. What if this whole process, going back to when I was coaching baseball, a lot of the times athletes didn't start even considering the recruiting process because they have all of these things that they're trying to consider: what school, where to go, what level can I play at, academics. And oftentimes people see things as overwhelming. They tend to avoid it. So what would be an easy way to kind of chunk it down, to simplify it, just to kind of get the ball rolling, just to kind of give it a little nudge to get the ball rolling?
Just go out and do some research on some schools. And again, it comes back to those personal preferences. Like, if you can't see yourself at a school with 30,000 students, then we're not going to look at some Power 5 schools on our list. Just get an idea of a location. Some people don't think about, do I want my parents to come watch me play as much as possible? If you go 5-6 hours away, there's a chance they might be driving around and watching you play every weekend, or there's not. It's those types of questions that I don't think kids think about.
And obviously your roadmap has a ton of questions that is going to get their mind turning in the right direction.
Absolutely.
A big thing I want to tackle, and I definitely want your 2 cents on, is level of play. Because of high school freshmen that might be starting this process, a lot of them are going to have the aspirations to play at the big time Division I schools, which I think is awesome, which I think is great. How do you navigate the fine line of determining what level they could potentially play at?
That's a great question. And I think when we say start the process, again, I almost want to take the athletic side out of it for now and just figure out the school, the academic part, and to see where your interest lies there.
Yeah.
As we get into sophomore year, we're starting to develop athletically. We're starting to get a better idea of where we are and what level we might be able to play at. One of the biggest things, and I don't think kids do it enough, is go out and watch a game. From a soccer standpoint, I always said,
golden.
Oh, you want to play Division I? Have you been to a Division I soccer game yet? No?
Yeah.
Then how do you know?
How do you know?
Yeah. How do you know? So that is the biggest thing I can tell parents and tell kids is get out and watch games as much as possible. D1, D2, D3. Obviously, your coach is going to be a good resource for you, whether travel ball coach or high school coach. And hopefully they're going to give you an honest opinion of this is where I think you can play. And so hopefully they're using that resources to their advantage.
Man, for anyone watching this, I think that's 2 huge nuggets of wisdom right there. Number one, if you're trying to figure out what level you can play at, go watch that level of play. Division I, Division II, NAIA, whatever it is. Go watch it to see what it looks like, how they interact, how the speed of the game is, the size, the strength, all that good stuff. And I think the second nugget, and this just completely blew my mind, I wish I knew this, I wish I had someone in my corner like you during the recruiting process, is you can figure out a lot of stuff before you need to determine what level you're going to play at. It's like on a computer, right? And you have this whole list of data, but there's this little navigation at the top, and it's called a filter. So you can filter out, what size school do I want to go? How far do I want to go? So, that's just like mind-boggling to me. And for whoever's watching this, that is golden to figure out those filters early on in the process. And then once it gets towards your sophomore, junior, whatever, you have such a clearer picture instead of picking it up. I can't tell you how many kids, when I was coaching baseball, they would just procrastinate until their sophomore, junior year, and it was like a rush at the last minute. They don't know what size school, they don't know where to go, they don't know academically, and that can be really stressful, and as you've probably seen, you're a lot better judge than I am, probably lead to a lot of bad decisions, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. That's why we start early. And so we say, whenever you're in that process of looking at schools, so build your list of schools that match academics, personal, and then bring in athletics and start with a list of 30, 40 schools. Start doing some preliminary research on those schools, and you'll start crossing off some schools. And as you go through the process, it's a long process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So it's going to be 18 months from the time you actually start, the time you finish, 18 months to maybe 2 years, depending on the level, the sport you're looking at, the schools you're looking at. You need to take your time. You need to be patient, but you need to go through the process, do your due diligence, do your research, and find what's going to fit for you.
Man, you've imparted a ton of wisdom for people that are unfamiliar with the recruiting process. So thank you. Tell us a little bit. Obviously, we talked about your book. Tell us a little bit about your coaching and your online programs.
So I mean, like I said, the book goes along. So the book is really intended to be a curriculum. And so what we do is we teach college recruiting to kids through 8-hour workshops. We do 1-hour workshop seminars. We're going to do a 1-day camp in February. We don't have a date selected yet, but that is upcoming, where for about 3-hour time window for high school student athletes. We're going to do everything from discover their why. So we're going to help them set their goals, establish their motives, and then develop a personal mission statement. And that personal mission statement is what's going to kind of carry them through the recruiting process. So your mission statement is who you are, what you're looking for out of your college experience, and what's important to you. So your values, who you are, your values, and what you're looking for out of your college experience. And then we're just going to move through the process. The big piece is developing that personal recruiting brand. So like you said earlier, like almost developing your own personal company. That's exactly what this is. So we look at helping them create that marketing portfolio of introduction letter, what that looks like, how to grab attention of a college coach through that letter, your student athlete profile. We talk about your recruiting video. We talk about creating an elevator pitch to send to college coaches. With technology today, the things I know, the kids lost a lot this year in the pandemic, but hopefully they were creative. And did a bunch of posts and videos earlier in the year about creating that elevator pitch to send to a college coach that you can attach to an email pretty easily, or you can DM a college coach. A 30-second, 45-second video of, oh, this is who I am. This is why I'm interested in your school, and I think you should recruit me.
Yeah, I think another part of it is the persistence of the athlete as well.
Absolutely. And we talk about effective communication strategies for college coaches. Obviously, you don't want to be emailing college coaches day in and every day, but once you get to a point where your coach, a coach is interested, keeping that relationship going through email is really important. And as a coach, I was a college coach for 7 years. I was recruiting coordinator for the women's program at the Mount. That was most important, is just to continue that relationship going for as long as the process lasts. So always check in 3 or 4 weeks, send an update email to the coach. Hey, coach, hope all's going well. Wish him well during the holidays. If they have a big game coming up, it's those little things that a coach is going to remember as it comes down to decision time for who they're going to bring in as recruits.
And you're largely teaching communication skills for the athlete, which is going to serve them beyond the recruiting process.
Yeah. I mean, everything in designing your pathway to college sports can be used down the road in life, in their career. We talk about time management, and I think that was the biggest thing I saw while I was working at the Mount as director of student athlete academic support. I was working with players like you and your colleagues, was the challenge of how to balance life as a student athlete, academically, athletically, socially, how to balance that. And I think that was the biggest challenge that I saw for a lot of student athletes, and that was really the idea where GFS came from.
That's excellent, man. You have imparted a ton of wisdom today, a ton of value. So I'm definitely grateful for having you on. For those of you that are watching live, I put his link to his website where he has information about his coaching. He has information about all of his programs online. And actually, if you check the description above, there should be a link to his book on Amazon. 100% go check it out. If you're a high school athlete, you're going to benefit. Think about the price of college. And you know, Chris did not ask me to do a sales pitch or anything for him. Think about the price of college. If a $25 book can help you choose the right school instead of going to the wrong school and wasting $40,000 or $50,000, then it's definitely worth $25 to save that $49,000, whatever. So definitely go check it out. Talk to me real quick about getting into schools. Just kind of a little teaser for what you're working on as far as that goes.
Yeah, so what people don't really understand is the admission process for student athletes is different than the regular student. Because I mean, I don't know when you committed, but most student athletes have verbally committed to the school they're going to prior to the start of their senior year. Now things might be different because now we're in a pandemic and the recruiting cycle is going to be totally thrown off. But in the last 5 years, most kids were verbally committed as juniors. I would say about 80 to 90%, all levels, D1, D2, D3. So the admission process is slightly different for student athletes because they already know where they're going. They've been, tentatively accepted through admissions and through their coach.
Right.
So where the stress lies for a regular student, there's not as much stress there for student athletes.
Interesting. I know you've got a lot of good things coming up. I know you have a lot of big programs that you're working on. So I appreciate you coming on the show. Go check out his book. It's in the description. His website is on the screen. Chris, is there any final words that you'd like to share?
No, I think just be patient, be proactive. Find the school that's going to fit your academic, athletic, personal needs. And we talked about it earlier. It's find the school that's going to give you the best college experience in all three aspects of your life. It's a fun journey. You were on it, Sam. I was not on it, so I don't know from a personal standpoint, but I've been along the ride with a lot of kids that have been on it. It's fun. It can be stressful. They're not going through it alone, but it's a fun journey. Enjoy it. And all the best when you get to college. Excellent, man. Chris, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon, man. Yeah, thanks, Sam. I really appreciate it. Awesome. Have fun.